Today, I'm going to talk about the power of narrative, the power of storytelling, and how we as parents can harness this to help shape and mold our children's behaviors, life choices, and in a sense of capacity, competency, and their ability to overcome. We're here to build resilience in our kids. My son was 3 years old and trying to learn to swim, but the truth is he was petrified of getting his face wet. On the way home one day, I told him a story about a turtle who was too afraid to swim. He was really worried about the water getting into his eyes and his nostrils and his ears. But slowly, all his friends gathered around him and encouraged him and showed him how to do it. He watched the dolphin do it, and then he watched the eel do it, and then he watched the shark do it. And slowly, he gathered the courage and the bravado to put his chin in, and then his mouth, and then his nostrils, and remembering to blow his bubbles, he finally put his whole face in and even opened his eyes. And everyone triumphed and was so proud of him, and he felt amazing and swam happily ever after. Now, this is a very simple and obvious metaphor that I was trying to share with my son about the gradual nature of facing our fears and overcoming our challenges and the support that he can get from his environment. But the really cool thing is that the next day when we returned to his swimming class, my son did indeed very gradually and with the support of me and his teacher begin to put his face in the water. Hi, I'm Avital. I'm the founder of Hi Fam. Welcome back. Today, we're going to delve into the most ancient of human arts, right? This ancient art of storytelling. Throughout millennia, sitting around the campfire and telling stories, traditions, myths about history, about your particular tribe, about the animals, right? Or about the gods has been a way of humans passing on their values and ideas from one generation to the next, even way before the written word. The reason that this is so powerful is that many of us are able to discern lessons and really internalize ideas from a story in a way that we maybe couldn't from being directly taught that thing. From someone simply admonishing us, telling us what to do, giving us life advice, preaching at us, we might get up all our defenses, right? We might actually resist them and not want to hear what they have to say. But when someone kind of entices us in, lures us in, seduces us into a story where there's mystery, where we don't know what's going to happen, where we're invested in the characters, where we want to hear how the plot twists and turns and eventually resolves itself, then they kind of are able to get in a message through the back door of our brain, right? Trojan horse style, the values come through the story without us ever deciding that this lesson is boring or that someone is being arrogant or feeling like someone's preaching at us, right? We're just invested in the story and the lesson comes through. So although I'm not an expert in this regard, today I've decided to put together an impromptu masterclass, a condensed lesson in how to use story and narrative in your parenting. I know that you, like me, probably don't want to just preach at your kids. You don't want to yell at them. You don't want to be telling them off the whole time. You don't want to be cross with them and constantly correcting or criticizing them. But you probably do have specific values that you do want to pass forward to your children, that you really want to instill in them and you want them to internalize. And that is the amazing power of storytelling. When you tell the right stories, you are going to embed within your children's psyche on a very subconscious level, but a really powerful level, right? Their awareness of how the world works, of what is right and wrong, of what values you yourself value and want to pass forward to them. And that is an amazing tool for us parents. And the truth is, I think this is such an underutilized tool. I mean, let me know in the comments if you've ever seen this tool taught in a parenting workshop, in a parenting book, because I haven't. The only time I've really heard about storytelling as a skill that we really want to develop in a very active and clear-cut way is maybe in business schools where they talk about marketing and selling and using story to approach and to share with your potential customer and client. I haven't really ever heard about it in the context of relationships, but the truth is that's where it started. That's where it formed, passing things on from one generation to the next. So first things first, what is a story? Well, our typical kind of legendary hero's journey story has 7 components to it. And the person who taught me this is Donald Miller, who teaches more on the business side of things. But his whole idea is that we convey key messages about our business and now about our family, I'm sharing with you, through story. And he breaks up stories like this. And notice that you can kind of take this modular formula and apply it, kind of layer it on top of almost any story that you know that's become an epic and famous legend. Things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and many biblical stories fit into this very original, very ancient mold. And the main story that I'm going to be talking to you about is the hero's journey, which, by the way, the story about the turtle who couldn't swim exactly fits on top of that hero's journey format. So spot if you can notice how it is structured. Number one, we have a hero. We have a character, right? We have the main character of the story. And the main character of the story, say Harry Potter, typically faces, number two, a problem. It's interesting that the main character is usually the weaker character in the story. They are a character who has not yet grown up, has not yet found their powers, has not yet slain the dragon, right? They're the prince who needs to go and slay the dragon. There may be Luke Skywalker who needs to become a Jedi. It's the before, right? The condition of the person who hasn't yet overcome and mastered something. That's how we start, with a hero who has a problem. Now, that problem could be any kind of problem. It could be a social problem. It could be an internal problem that they have with themselves. It could be a problem with some kind of villain on the outside, like a Voldemort-like figure who wants to do them harm, or a dragon that they have to slay. But it could also be a problem like they're not finding true love. They feel lonely. They don't have any confidence in themselves to go out and build their career. They're scared of swimming and getting their face wet. The hero faces a problem. Because they're facing this challenge, they then meet a guide. And the guide is actually the strongest character in the story's architecture. And the reason is because the guide has empathy for the hero, because he was too once a young hero, a young character who faced a challenge. But the guide has strength and authority because the guide has already overcome. Now, in your child's story, I would love for you to be the guide in many of the cases, right? I mean, it could be their friends, it could be their teachers, it could be a mentor, it could be their siblings. There could be many other guides. But I would love for you to conceive of yourself as the main guide in your child's life, the guide who has already grown up, who does have a fully developed prefrontal cortex, who has mastered quite a lot of challenges in your life, right? Who is an adult, a civilized, upstanding citizen, and who has learned the math and the swimming and tying the shoelaces and making friends and all these various skills that you want your child to learn. So you can be the Yoda to your Luke Skywalker, or the Dumbledore to your Harry Potter, right? You're the person who's already been through the challenges that they're going through and has some wisdom to impart. The guide actually offers the hero a plan, okay? They actually tell them what to do. And this is a controversial point because so many parents in today's day and age, and I think in the gentle parenting movement in general, have the sense that they shouldn't be imposing on their child any kind of plan for their life. They shouldn't be telling them how to live, what to choose, lifestyles, right and wrong, what to believe. They are just this impartial kind of servant, right? They're making sure that they're safe and taken care of and sheltered and fed, but they're not going to guide them in any particular direction. And that's not something that I've ever believed in, and not something that I teach inside of my membership, The Studio. Quick shout out, this video is sponsored by The Studio, where we teach exactly these skills and how to build a strong family culture. So make sure to check it out at the end of this video, highfam.com/studio. And the reason I don't teach that is because I think our children deserve and need our guidance. I believe that's what parenting really is. And if we don't put ourselves in the position of the guide, we're abdicating our role as offering our children their rightful inheritance. Their rightful inheritance, not just fiscally, but also to our life experience, to our wisdom, to our way of life and our traditions, to our value system and our vision. Now, we don't need to impose all of these, right? It doesn't need to be top heavy. It doesn't need to be controlling. We don't need to live vicariously through our kids. We don't need to force upon them our belief system, but we do need to offer it. Just like Dumbledore offers his support and his guidance to Harry Potter. That is real love and mentorship. So the guide offers the character, the hero, a plan and calls them to action. You see, the hero feels afraid. The hero feels like, I can't overcome this challenge. The hero feels crippled by anxiety and worry, right? Maybe they're shy. Maybe they're underskilled. Maybe they've never experienced this before. Maybe they're really worried. Maybe they're scared of getting their face wet. But the guide is there to say, here's the plan. You're going to do it gradually. And I'm calling you to action. Tomorrow, you're going to try this. And calling them to action is what gives them that bravado. It gives them that push that they need, lights a little fire under them to get them going. The last two steps of the hero's journey is that after they've followed this plan and taken the action, they experience success. And success is that thing that they so wanted, right? Harry Potter becomes a wizard and defeats the dark magic, right? Luke Skywalker becomes a Jedi and learns about his father. Bridget Jones finds true love. People who are main characters of their story, heroes, have this challenge, and the hero's journey, for it to be an inspiration and for it to be exciting to us, ends with their success. But their success is both the pleasure that they gain and the pain that they avoid. They get to avoid failure as well. And in a really compelling story, failure would be devastating. It would be serious. The stakes would be high, right? Like if you didn't learn to become a wizard, dear Harry Potter, then the Dark Lord would, reign supreme, and there would be really dark, terrible times and death and destruction for everyone. If Bridget Jones doesn't find true love in the end, then she'll be a lonely old spinster and it will be so sad. We have to be invested in the main character's success, because if the turtle doesn't learn how to swim, he's going to be all dry on land and he's actually going to shrivel up. It would be a terrible state of affairs. That is the structure of the story. So this is the masterclass portion of how to structure your story. And it can be so simple. I mean, my turtle story, for example, is not a masterpiece, but it has within it the main character who has a problem. He can't swim. He finds guides, his friends around him, the dolphins, the eels, the sharks, and they call him to action with a plan, right? You're going to first gradually put your face in and then your nose in, right? Slowly, 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 you're going to build it up and then you're going to achieve success. You will swim, you'll be off to the races, you'll be out with your friends, and you won't shrivel up and die. You'll avoid failure. And so you can do this in the most simple way possible for any subject. So when are you going to use this skill? That's what we're going to dive into next. The first type of story I want you to tell your children is stories of family histories. Stories are our way of connecting and linking generations and feeling like we come from somewhere. Many people in the West today feel like they're just an individual who just appeared on this earth and they have no ties, no roots, no connections to the people who came before them, to the people who sacrificed for them, to the people who built the world as it is today, and to whom they are indebted. And that is something that is missing because we all want to feel, I think, on a deep kind of ancestral level, that we are somehow a link in a chain, that we're not just islands, we're not just individuals on our own, but we are belonging into a certain grander story, a story that is greater than just my little life, a story that connects me to a history, to a people, to a nation, to a movement, to maybe an ideology or a perspective or a religion or a family or a place, something that positions me along the timeline of history and helps me to find my feet. Like, how am I similar and how am I different from the people who came before me? Family history has within it these kernels of fascinating truths, right? And I bet if you scratch the surface of your family history, you will find stories of tremendous overcoming and resilience. You will find stories of immigration, stories of rags to riches, stories of overcoming disease or war. You will find some sad stories, some tragic stories, but you'll also find some inspiring stories. And many of those might be all wrapped up within the same person. People in your family history may have been terrible, say, fathers and husbands, but incredible, maybe businessmen or friends. Maybe you have someone in your family history who was incredibly physically strong, but mentally rather weak. In order to give your child a sense of belonging, a sense of history, a sense of knowing where they come from, I want you to try to discern, try to pull apart. Maybe you even have family members who are elderly, who are able to share stories of times gone by that might serve as an inspiration and a sense of belonging and connectedness for your child. In fact, inside of the studio, one of the projects that we work on is family roots, researching where our family comes from, our ancestry, our heritage, our history, and even putting that together in a book. Now, that's very next level, but here in this video, I just want to share the idea of just telling those stories, right? They could be bedtime stories, they could be stories that you share at the dinner table, they could be stories that you even record and put down on paper. But the idea of sharing family history in this format of narrative, of story, is something that's really going to empower your child to feel like, oh, I'm not an island. I'm not just this lonely random person floating around in the world. I come from somewhere, for better or for worse. The second type of story I want you to use to empower your child and build up their sense of confidence is stories of your child and their personal overcoming. For example, maybe your child struggled learning to ride a bike, but eventually mastered it, struggled learning to read, but eventually mastered it, fell down and got back up, was teased by a friend and had a good cry and then moved on. Whatever it is that your child has overcome, they've overcome something. Every child has taken a stumble and taken a fall. Even just telling your child of how they learned to walk when they constantly fell and stumbled is literally a physical manifestation of the type of idea of resilience that we want to pass on to them. We want our children to learn that they are overcomers, that where they first start isn't where they end up. This is how we develop and embed a growth mindset into them. Take my daughter, for example, who was petrified of dogs. She was so afraid of a dog that she would hide behind me and grab my pants just to not get close to a dog in the street. But together, she faced her fears. We babysat our friend's dog and eventually we got our own dog. And today she can take our dog out in the street, go to a dog park and be absolutely fine. She's mastered that anxiety and she no longer has that phobia. So she doesn't need to identify as someone who's afraid of dogs anymore. That's an amazing story for her to grow up on. I want her to hear it often and remind herself of it often, because every time she faces a new fear, she's going to have that self-concept of someone who can and has overcome. Children don't gain confidence by you just telling them you're not afraid of dogs, you're brave, you're smart, you're clever, you're a good friend, you're fine. You can't talk confidence into someone. This is the failure of the self-esteem movement of the 80s and 90s, is that we thought we could just tell our kids how great they are. But the truth is, confidence is earned. It's earned through real life experiences. You have to actually have the embodied experience of overcoming a fear in order to learn about yourself that you can do that. Your parent can talk you blue in the face and tell you how great and brave you are, but until you actually exercise bravery and courage, you will not recognize that in yourself. It will feel like they are blowing hot air, and it will feel like an inflated self-esteem that is based on doubt. We need evidence in order to earn self-confidence. And these stories are your way of providing that evidence for your child. You remind them, hey, do you remember the time where you were so shy to recite that poem, but then you got up and you said it and everyone loved it? It's so cool how you overcame that fear. You're really good at overcoming things. You're really resilient in that way. These types of stories, anything can be a story like this. You were scared to make an omelet and now you know how to make omelets. You didn't know how to tie your shoelaces and now you do. These are simple stories that embed within our children a self-concept of someone who overcomes and builds resilience. The next type of story I want you to use is a story that's going to save you from yourself when you're getting too preachy. Listen, ask me how I know, but being preachy to our children, lecturing them and droning on and on in a somewhat high horse, monologue that is all about maybe shaming them or blaming them or trying to teach them a lesson or trying to get them to, wise up and learn the wisdom of your ways and perhaps amend their own. When we get too wordy and we're talking too much at our children and just lecturing them again and again about their shortcomings, they learn to just drone us out. They learn to just turn a blind eye, turn a deaf ear, and it becomes background noise. Our voice becomes elevator music. They're not really listening anymore. And so storytelling can be a really fantastic way of embedding those values and showing them what you believe in and what you most want to see in them without lecturing. None of us want to sound preachy. None of us want to be moralized to. And so instead of doing that, I want to ask you, can you find a story to tell your child? And you never have to explain it. You never have to say, now, what do we learn from this story? Now, what's the key takeaway? Now, what's the lesson? You don't actually have to spell it out. That's the beauty of story, kind of like play, right? Where children are just going to get those goodies, they're going to get the lessons without you breaking it down so clearly. So can you come up with metaphors? Can you read stories about other people? Can you find books that share the same kind of value that you're trying to teach them? If you're trying to get them to be more generous, can you tell stories about people who were generous and how it benefited them and society at large? If you're trying to get kids to be harder workers and to be a little bit more persistent, can you tell stories about that? These are the types of stories that are going to help you pass on your values, but in a more subconscious and palatable way so that your child can digest it and receive those goodies without the lecture. And finally, you can overtly and proactively use stories to tell your children what you value. Look for biographies. Look for stories from your own life. Look for stories that you maybe make up or that you've heard before, or folk tales or mythology that have within them the values that you yourself want to pass on. Maybe you really believe in loyalty or in a hard work ethic or in friendship, or you really believe in honesty and always telling the truth no matter what. Maybe to you, it's really, really critical that people take care of themselves and each other and nurture. Whatever the value is that you would like to pass on, you can find stories that embody that. You can find people throughout history who have great biographies written about them or movies about them where they show, bravery and courage and inventiveness and creativity. Whatever the value is that you value. And if you're not sure what you value, then make sure to get on the studio waitlist, because I will help you craft your vision and get crystal clear on what you want for your family and for your children. That's really the first step. Once you know what you value and what you really want to bring out in them, what you want to encourage them in their lives, that then comes through in the stories that you tell, in the stories that you platform, in the books that you buy, in the movies that you watch. Storytelling is a critical, crucial, essential, highly effective, but completely missed and slightly mysterious and secret tool for us parents to infuse our children with the values that we believe in, with their sense of self, with their sense of the world, with their sense of who they want to grow up to be, and in fact, who they are, with their identity. So this is the power of narrative. I would love to hear below what's your key takeaway from this video. If you found it interesting, if you agreed, if you disagreed, I really encourage respectful debate. So let me know in the comments below. And if you want a part 2 or more on this, then let me know that as well. Meanwhile, make sure that you're on the studio waitlist. Doors open soon, and I would really love to carry on this journey with you in there and help you to build a strong family culture. Keep on living that high fam life. I'll see you next time.